Hi, and welcome to Art of Heart. I'm Marissa Campbell, and this is Thursday, and good things happen on Thursday. So I know every week you guys probably listen and you're like, God, this is her favorite guest. Every week is her favorite guest. But kind of what happens is when I start to think about whoever is the guest, I'm like, wow, I'm so excited they're on. I can't wait for you to hear their story. And before we jump in and let Danny tell you a little bit who he is, I have to tell you about kind of how Danny and I's journey came to be. And so I was very newly on my learning to walk after my spiritual awakening or whatever we're going to call it. And I wasn't really sure how to represent myself, if that makes any sense at all. And Danny and I had just recently, like within like in a month of this happening, working on a project together. We didn't know each other. The first time we met, it was on a phone call. I was on my way to the airport. He was going somewhere, and we kind of got introduced through a mutual business person, and the conversation started. And so I didn't really know him. And then fast forward a few weeks later, my power went out, and we had a few minutes to just talk, and I was in my car at a Walmart, and I just felt like I just felt something about Danny's energy was like you can just tell him that things are different. And he was the very first person I wasn't like really close to, wasn't in my close inner circle, who I told that I was going through this journey and that things in my heart were changing. And his reception was like so over the top amazing. And I'll tell you guys more about the story later, but he's just such a cool man. And I can't wait for you to meet him. So without further ado, Danny, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
What a lovely way to remember our meeting, which wasn't that long ago, right, Marissa? I feel like there are people in your life that become part of the tapestry of your life, and frequently we think of these people as the ones we grew up with, like, oh, my best friend from grade school, or my best friends from high school, and I think it's because we spend these formative times with certain people. And so, yeah, just if you'll indulge me, I think that you and I at some point are kind of sharing formative times together, though we've truly never been in the same room together, and it's all been virtual. So it's what a time to be alive. But so about myself, yeah, I am somebody who had some epiphanies similar to the ones that you're describing to me, but of course different, colored with my own perspective. But um, I think I really started my journey of self-knowledge and um, um, trying to expand into whoever I am. I think I started that about 12 or 15 years ago. So I've got some time in, and I've I've really fundamentally, I want to say, changed who I am, but in many ways just I've come back to the person that I left.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's such an important part. I really get kind of like annoyed with people like, "Oh, I'm healing. I'm healing." I'm like, I don't know that we ever get broken, right? Like, I don't know that there's something fundamentally wrong with us. I just think we remember who we were, or that innocence that is the spark that is us in this human experience. And so I love that you kind of have a similar take on it.
I really do. My journey included kind of at this seminal moment where things were really, I guess on paper, analytically, looking pretty good. I was tracking well. I was making money. I had finished my education at UCLA. I've married the girl of my dreams. I've got young kids. Um, and yet I was, I mean, by any measure, not, I was just kind of faking it. I was not the happy-go-lucky kid anymore. And it manifested really in ugly ways. I was unpredictable in terms of my emotional state. I was loud. I was, I think, scary to the ones that were close around me because they just didn't know what dad or what husband or what Danny they were going to encounter based upon these moods. And so being quick to anger was just never anything I would ever have thought of as being a way to describe me. I was ashamed. And I I didn't know what to do. It was a problem, and I had a series of life events that um, really all conspired to force this stubborn, achievement-oriented guy to his knees, and to say, I don't know what to do. And those life events are the typical ones. My dad had just died, and then he was just such a mentor to me. My wife and I were not getting along. There was episodes in within the marriage that said, yeah, this is probably not gonna last. My kids, as I said, were are just the only thing I ever wanted to be was a dad, and I kind of had the sense that they don't really know their dad. And then my dog got hit by a car, and so I'm just like, oh my God, I'm, I'm suffering. And so I had gone for a checkup with my physician, and at the end of my little checkup, everything was fine, and the blood pressure pills seemed to be working. And so he closes the file and he says, "So how are you doing?" And okay, sense of humor, I get it. That's why I was here, doc. You tell me. And he says, "No, no, no. How are you doing?" And that was one of these explosive emotional moments. So I just wept for the first time in years, and I just sobbed. And so this guy introduced me to a community of men that happens to exist only in Monterey County, where I live. And I went through a 34-week curriculum, a course that the title of the course is still around. It's this incredible nonprofit community um, that is called Breakthrough. And it is truly a course on what is who are you, why are you here, and what is going on for you, and going through an experiential journey to examine past hurts so that you can maybe discharge some of the energy around them. And for me, who
Yeah.
I'm not a combat veteran, thank goodness I'm not a victim of childhood sexual abuse. I didn't lose a twin at birth. I mean, I'm the guy that, what am I doing here? Everyone else here, boy, they have a reason to be fucked up. Why am I even
Right.
here?
They went through
So
something. Right.
what I came to learn is that nobody gets through it unscathed, and everybody takes trauma, everybody takes injuries, and you can systemically and um, methodically start to heal your heart, your soul. And if you do it and you spend some time and care and make it a priority, you can really come to a new reality. And so that was the beginning of my journey. And I can bore you with a lot of stuff that's happening in the intervening 12 years, but here we are.
Well, I wanna back up for a second, and I think that it's really important because the more of these conversations I have, the more I get this very deep knowing, not like in my head, but like in my heart, that 100% of people are not okay.
Mm,
And I'm not saying that they're not okay 100% of the time, but at some point in this journey of their human experience, they've been not okay and they're carrying something with them that is really hard. I was having breakfast with a dear friend, an ex colleague week ago, actually. And she said, "How are you so brave to tell your story that you're not okay? And how are you so," because she's like, "You're the one who always has it all together. You're the one we all go to. You're the one that we go to solve business problems." She's like, "I've seen you slay dragons at work." And she's like, "You always were okay." And I said, "The thing is, I can do the tasks. I'm very action oriented. I can create a plan to solve anything. But it doesn't mean that inside I was okay for whatever else was happening. They're different things for me." And so I think the fact that the doctor took the time to say, "No, like, how are you?"
mm.
Which is so rare,
Yeah,
right? Like, how often you go to the doctor and
totally.
they're just like, "Okay, blood pressure medicine, check," and he's out the door, right?
Next.
But, like, for one human, right, to see you and be like, "Wow, man, I think he's, like, really not okay. And let me just pause for a second and see if me checking in on him can have some impact, can get through that achievement oriented exterior, that I shouldn't feel like something's wrong with me because I have all the things are looking up. I am on paper analytically where I want it to be, but I'm still not
Yeah.
okay." And so like what a cool moment. And for those listening, um if you're on your journey of um the being more okay, right? Because I think that's Danny and I would both probably tell you we're on the journey of being more okay. It's not a light switch. Like it's not like one day all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm like moving to where I want to be. Like there's a bunch of jigs and jaws through the way, but stop to ask people how they are and see what happens next.
And isn't it interesting that that question, whenever posed, when asked, the receiver of the question has to make a judgment, and they do it in a split second. Oh, is this just one of those pleasantries where somebody's asking how I am, and I need to go into my script and say, oh, great, how are you? Or do I take this opportunity? Is this person safe enough? Can I be vulnerable enough to say, oh, how am I? Well, gosh, I haven't even thought about that since a week ago. I think I'm a little scared right now. And then you look at the other person's face, it's like, oops, they just wanted me to be pleasant. But it's
Right.
funny.
I was the queen of
The
fine. Yeah.
challenge would be to be the one who does pose that question in a sincere manner and is ready for the answer. And listening is a great skill, isn't it?
It really is, and, so I have to share another story on my Danny journey, and again, it's been so short, there are so many stories, but, he invited me to a group of like-minded thinkers, and, it happened at a time where I had just finished writing my book, Lead with Heart, and I had just kinda put the pen down and it was ready to go to print, and I was, sitting at my mom's house, which is, can be really hard for me. I was actually sitting in the room where my dad had died just 12 months before. And I didn't had a lot of things going on at work, a lot of pressures. There was a board meeting, and I had been invited for some weeks to this meeting. And I was just like, I just don't have time in my day for this because the truth is, we only have time in our day for what we want to have time in our day for. But I got on the call, and within like, I don't know, 15 seconds, instead of everybody showing up and touting their credentials, which is what every other call is like in the world, like, hi, I'm Danny, and I own a clean tech company. And I went here to school and I did this or whatever the case is. The question was, how are you showing up today? And when I tell you, I like skidded to a full stop
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my gosh, there's other people on this journey
yeah,
and they don't care about what I've done in my career. They don't care about my achievements. They truly care about this human and how am I showing up today?
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about how showing up today for you is different than it was 14 years ago?
Um, oh, wow. I love the question. Okay, so some of the things that I've learned and embraced and then even expanded upon from this, this class that I told you I took. So I've completely learned that and I dare say most men and maybe even most everybody, operate on you tend to operate with this software that you learn as a kid, while you're just trying to survive, that is locked down, that you do not allow certain feelings to metabolize, being insecure, being unsure, being afraid, being sensitive, whatever that means, emotional. Those things are not allowed, and so you bury them. And what I've learned is that you don't get to pick and choose feelings. You don't get to pick and choose states of being. And if you lock down some, you lock down all. So if you want access to true joy, to bliss, to unfettered love, to real curiosity. If you really want access to that, you have to condition yourself. You have to prepare yourself to be with all of the feelings. All of the guests get a seat at your table. And so a lot of the time, Marissa, I'm overwhelmed, because I hurt so much. I really have to be careful with my information diet because I get bowled over by, the news of the day. I think everybody is in a state of overwhelm. So if you're overwhelmed, you need to have a practice for how do you deal with being overwhelmed so that you can function. It's worth it. This payoff is, don't lock down. The goal is to be awake, alive, and to allow all the feelings so that you can have the good ones, the bad ones, the real ones. So you need a practice, and so I've developed a few practices that help me. But it really doesn't matter whether it's meditation or breathing or, a walk on the beach or knitting, or just affirmations. That has helped me tremendously. So yeah, these practices I think are key. The goal isn't to feel good. The goal is to feel more and then to deal with all of it. Yeah, so that's kind of how I go about my world.
That's fantastic. I call those things tethers, like those things that bring you closer to yourself. And I really have learned to prioritize tethers even when I don't have time for them because I am a better version of myself when I do those things. The other thing, there is so much coming at us in the world. And I've been on this, I've had this like line for the past couple weeks is I am hoping for a slow news cycle. I need a slow news cycle. I would be really interested in there being a slow news cycle, and what I'm communicating to others, and it's not just news in the world, it's news in my own life, it's news in whatever, right? Like, but a news cycle is like what's going on right now. And what I'm learning is that the outside doesn't slow down no matter how much I want it to. But what I can do is I can pace the information that comes in and I can pace the more news coming in, the more I need to tether. And I know this about myself. And so, as you think about information and the state of the world, um, I think it's not something that a lot of us are talking about, but 100% of us are affected by,
Yeah,
good or bad,
yeah,
right? So there's a lot.
yeah.
It's never ending.
Well, and the tools now are super sophisticated. I mean, they're designed to get through your veneer. And so, okay, welcome inside my veneer. Now that you're here, I get to decide what kind of weight that everything gets, and I get to just decide to focus on. Um, I think, for me, the people I admire the most, the people who I think of as my, the men in my life who I think are the most masculine, the badass people, are the ones who are able to be vulnerable, who are able to um, be affected. And it's not the Marlboro Man from, that was the image. I'm 60, so I indulge me. That's the full print ad of the guy on the cowboy in the sunset, and he's got a Marlboro hanging. He doesn't need anything. Well, that's certainly not me, and no longer is that someone that I would think has got it all put together. I would think that guy's about to burst. Stay away from that dude.
Things are going
Not
well.
going good. Yeah, yeah.
No, no. So, I know we've talked a little bit about your first story, but I want to really, the title of a story is something I just want to pause and give, some voice to, which is if you could change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And first of all, such a powerful description of the stories. For those of you who don't know, when a guest comes on the show, they're asked to fill out a short questionnaire, and it's really intended for them to think about what they want to share on the podcast. And we ask them to give a title. And kind of what that does is, when you're thinking about you have a lifetime of human experiences, how do you show up for 30 minutes and have a conversation? You've got to have some bookends on what you want to share. Um, and I have to tell you, when I first read this, I was like, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I repeated it like 6 times and I was like, perception is everything. So tell us a little bit about story 1.
That is a guiding um, discovery that I came upon in this journey of self-discovery. I came back to something that I think I believed as a child, and maybe every child believes, is that um, it, well, let me just come back to the words, and that is that if you are able to see things in a certain manner, then that thing, not just with your brain, but in reality,
Mhm.
changes. And you know, indulge me if this comes across as a little bit woo woo or Zen or New Age, but it has been my experience, not just my own self perception, but going back to those formative things about my children being around this unpredictable emotional outburst of a dad, my wife, seeking a way out, a a career where I'm just at the whim of being fired with the next economic downturn. I'm just like at the end of this whip and I'm just getting my butt kicked. Well, by changing the way I see the world and the way I see myself, everything is different, Marissa. Everything is different. I founded a company that's been very successful that why would anybody fire the CEO who founded the company? I mean, I'm not at the whim. I get to decide what happens. My children and I have this deep, deep, sophisticated and rich relationship. My wife and I just celebrated 35 years together. So I changed the way I viewed myself and the world. And did I change those relationships? I don't think I did. I think the universe reorganized around my sense of it. And then so, and I don't know how to do this as a card trick, but honestly, I think if I think of a, VW Beetle as a Ferrari, and I really, really think of it, I think I'll be driving a Ferrari. It's people talk about manifesting and the power of positive mental attitude. But truly, if I'm able to change the way I think of things, then those things change. It happens, and maybe for the good and for the bad. So you need to condition your mind to think positively or specifically about what it is, the nature of that thing. Yeah. So it's a roundabout thing. I haven't fully developed this philosophy, but it is something that is a guidepost for me.
It's also really interesting. I'm reading this book. So there's a book that was written called The Big Leap, and it's this guy, and he talks about your upper limit problems, and we all have our own glass ceiling, and our body is conditioned to whatever it knows. It is, even if something is better, it's still afraid of it. And it doesn't want it, unless you start to program yourself to be okay with those things. And he wrote another book called The Zone of Genius, and it's so wild. He says this thing yesterday, and I was sitting in a cafe after my computer died yesterday. I was in a cafe, and I was just listening to the book, and I was eating a gyro. And he says in this book, I said, like he says to me, like I'm the only one who ever read it, but you get the point. He's like, when you are in your zone of genius, and to that, it's like being the best version of yourself, what you're passionate about, and where your skills lie is your zone of genius, which arguably is what you're doing every day, right? He says, when you're in your zone of genius, luck chases you.
Mm.
And I was like, "Luck chases you?" And he said he's coached hundreds and thousands of people, and he's seen this happen in his life. And he's like, when you are in your zone of genius, or what I call being the best version of yourself, you may call it something else, right? It's all the same thing. Luck chases you, but when you think about it, it's about your mindset. It's about how you view things. Does that VW bug turn into a
Yeah.
Ferrari? And it's so interesting to me that there's little different nuanced ways of saying these things, but they're getting the
We're all
same message
circling the
to
same
you.
truth, and it's not
We're all
taught to you.
circulating the
And
same truth.
and I think another adjunct to that is maybe should be given some oxygen is you don't have to really do anything. You just need to change the way you look at things. When I say look at things, I like the way you understand something, the way you approach something, the way you, in Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, the way you grok something. That's the term, to just completely accept it. And so being and doing are so totally different. And so if you can just be differently, then everything around you is different.
Everything is different. So if you had to describe your heart, um, becoming this new person who has this new perception on things, what would your heart look like?
Oh, yeah, so I'm a very literal person. I'm thinking not of a Valentine heart, but of a beating heart. So it's red and it's beating and it's coursing with the stuff of life and perhaps even the stuff of the universe. So there's some radiant quality. I think if it were being described with a color, it would be like the brightest gold that is the base layer, but completely covered with this bright red, viscous, bloody, gooey redness. So you can see the light underneath it, but the heart beating and moving, not just the vessel, me, Danny. but
Yeah,
also
right.
everything around it connected to the universe. Yeah, so very, very strong imagery around that for me.
When we talked about what your first heart looks like, it's so interesting to me that so many people, when they describe their hearts in these moments, there is a vibrancy to their description, right? Like the vibrancy of some hearts are just so obvious. And I love the fact that your story is able to show that vibrancy through those descriptive words, even though it's totally okay to be a totally analytical person. That's normal when we talk about these things for sure. So let's talk about story 2. Story 2 is There Is No Other, and I can't wait to hear more about this. So tell me about this.
So there is no other is I think if story one is the historical um, sense for how I began to think about life and work on um, having more of a life. I'm coming towards this new awareness that would suggest that there is no other. And what does that look like? How does that manifest? Well, I mean, at so many levels. Um, I guess as I develop spiritually, I should share that I'm an agnostic person. I just feel like the constructs of religion don't really seem very plausible to me, and at best, it's just unknowable. So, so there is no other would be to suggest that um, this is everything. This is the heaven that we've been waiting for. This is the hell that we've been avoiding. There is no other. Um, I need to pack everything into, if I'm lucky, I'm going to have, 100 really good years. So to that, I'm very specific about how I go about my life because there is no other. This is it. And it's today. There is no other day. It's now. And being with you, Marissa, and with your audience, I need to be here now because uh, where else would I be?
Right.
So there is no other. And then there's also the sense as I go about my life, um, I do feel very deeply connected with those quote unquote other things, that those things are me. And that speaks a little bit to how you and I met each other, that I don't think of you and never thought of you as a stranger. You're just this beautiful entity and being that is part of my heart that I didn't have a chance to know before business brought us together. And who cares if it was business or if it was a walk on the beach or if we were high school sweethearts. It really doesn't make any difference at
No.
all. And if I can embrace that there is no other, that everyone is in my heart as I am in their heart, isn't that a more wonderful place to live?
Oh my gosh, yeah, you have, how many opportunities a day do you get to bump into someone who was always in your heart and always connected to you, you just hadn't met them yet, and you didn't have the opportunity to share, whatever moment of that journey is with you. Many years ago, I had one of my best friends passed away, and somebody had given me a quote, and I actually used it in her eulogy, and it's "A reason, a season, or a lifetime." And that's one of those things that always has stuck with me, that people will come into your life for a reason, whether it's for us to learn or for them to learn or who knows what. A season, maybe they're there for a season, maybe it's a childhood best friend, or maybe it's someone that you work with who you became very close to for, a season of your life. And maybe it's for a lifetime, maybe yours or theirs. And when you think of it, you kind of merge these two concepts of like, there is no other, and people are going to come in and out, and whatever they're there for is perfect and it's okay, and we have this opportunity to just be present in that, whatever it is, and that an attachment, I guess.
I I find that that is the magic that I seek. That as a child I thought of, this magical world where anything is possible. In embracing that sense that there is no other, amazing coincidences happen. Just you see these tethers and these connections that are only possible by the supernatural, that the odds of something like and I can give a million examples, but just these magical happenings continue to happen, and then um, embracing it as being marvelous and just this experience of this life. It's just a good philosophy, and I think that there, as I learn more about different philosophies, that there are Eastern philosophies that really embrace that there's just this one singularity, and that we're all connected in
Yeah.
this cosmos with consciousness. And so, anyway, it's a fun space to be right now, and I'm sitting with it as and enjoying wherever it'll take me.
It's so neat, and I think too, one of those things one of those opportunities uh, that kind of core value or North Star gives to you is that you're not limiting whatever's going to happen next, right? Like you don't have any idea what the universe is going to give you or what amazing people you're going to meet or what incredible opportunity is going to happen because you're just being present in the moment and you're not saying, well, that's not possible and that's not possible. And, well, that happens to other people or whatever the case is. And it just unlocks this like true magic. I'm with you. First of all, I'm such a magic nerd. Like, I'm into magic. I think that whatever my brain can possibly imagine, it could be a million times more neat and serendipitous that I could ever come up with on my own because that's just how life is. But that's how I've chosen to live. Um, and not because I haven't had really bad things happen, and not because I haven't been heartbroken, and not because I haven't experienced loss, but because I still believe in that. So, you know what Hallmark is, right? Like Hallmark movies?
Yeah.
And you know how in Hallmark movies, they're always predictable, like, it always works out, like, there's some big tragedy they have to triumph, and then everything
And
works
then the
out, and everybody's
resolution.
right, right, it's the same. I really like, I totally live in this Hallmark world, and I think that's what we get to do if we're in our best and highest alignment, and I think when we're out of it, that's when things really struggle.
Yes, and it's very important to another term that I've kind of worked with is stripping away all the bits that are not us. So in that Hallmark movie that is your life or my life, the dynamic main character has to go through this tumultuous rebirth, trial by fire. And in doing so, the shackles of all of these things that they took on become clear that these were not hers, and that she's been carrying this burden unreasonably, and she can just set them down. And then in doing so, we've reached this synchronicity, this serendipity, and so that has been my life. And so and I fall into this all the time. One of the things that was installed on me, probably not even by my parents, but by their parents and the parents before, was this sense of insecurity, and it manifests through financial insecurity. And ironically, it has nothing to do with how much is in the bank account, or whether the bills are paid, or it's just there. And so when I can attention that and say, what do you want attention, right? This feeling, this dread is asking me for attention. So rather than bury it, as I learned to do as a kid, and just make myself hard and work harder and get a bigger number, I say, what do you want to tell me? What do you need from me right now? And sometimes it's just that little ask and answer. It's like, oh, I just wanted you to know I'm here. It's like, okay, got
Yeah,
it.
okay, I got it.
Go away. I don't need you right now, but when I need you, I'll call you.
And by the way, no matter what that number is, no matter how big it is, it's never enough. It's never, it's never enough. There's always something more that is demanded of it, and it needs to be fed until I think it doesn't need to be fed anymore. And I do think that there's something that happens to us when we decide to stop feeding these things that were installed into us. And listen, it's not easy. Like, it's not easy. But you do have to just say, to your point, "Hey, I see you. What do you need from me? Okay, we're good? Okay."
Well, and that goes to all of these urges, right? So, so many of us go through life feeling, well, like the, this sexual objectification of relationships and the emphasis on sex, 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 that in some ways is just an acknowledgement that people want more connection, they want more touch, they want more love. And it's if I'm feeling just this neediness, this sexual urge, and asking, what's going on? There's a feeling, there's a sign. I think I just am not feeling lovable or loved right now. And if I can use words and say, "Tell me all the things you love about me," suddenly everything comes back into this beautiful equilibrium. So you got to be vulnerable and available to even have that kind of presence. I'm good at it. I'm not great at it, but this is what I'm working on.
Right, it's a practice. And, too, I think that for no matter what we're feeling, like, I'm really learning to get to whatever my secondary emotion is. Like, if I'm mad, if I instantly get mad, like, "Why am I mad? Like, what's wrong?" Right? Or, like, if I notice for me, if I notice that I'm real snippy, um why, right? Like, am I feeling like I'm not focusing my time where I need to focus it, and therefore everything is annoying, like everything's an annoyance? Or am I really depleted? Like, am I super tired? I've been on the road for 2 weeks. I've had a whole bunch of stuff go on, and I just need a few hours to just not be constantly pinged, right? Like, but what would happen is I would just get mad, or I would pull the ripcord and I would just turn everything off. And so being able to use your words and being able to say to whoever's on the other side, "Hey, I need a couple hours. Like, I'm feeling very overwhelmed, and I feel like I haven't done anything for myself in 2 weeks because I've been on the road and all these things have happened, and I just need a little time." That's a perfectly acceptable thing to say. And by the way, whoever's on the other end should be like, "Thank you so much for sharing. I got it."
Exactly. Because you, in sharing, give me permission to do that introspection. And isn't that the kind of support you want in your life and to cultivate these relationships? And maybe there are those saying, "Oh, I don't have anyone like that. I could have, I mean, how lucky they are." Well, that's where if you change the way you look at things, the
Yes.
things you look at change. The best way to have a friend is to be a friend and to be that one who can be available emotionally, who has a reservoir. That means that those around you will be your reservoir. Yeah, and it just comes with that decision to be vulnerable and to be present.
Yeah, and I would argue that you have to first start with yourself, because if you're not being your own best friend and you're not being honest with yourself and you're not being available to yourself, like, you're just attending to whatever needs come up next, and always pushing yourself down and putting yourself last, you're never gonna find your way out of that hole until something breaks. And honestly, I kinda hope something breaks. If you're on the other end of this podcast and you've not experienced this overwhelming, crushing feeling that you can't do this anymore, I hope it happens for you, because on the other side, you have the choice to either wake up and be different, or you can go back to the old self. But for everybody I've ever talked to, there was always some type of break. And, you know,
Well, my mentor, one of my mentors, an early mentor, the founder of that community, that nonprofit in Monterey County, California. Um, he was fond of saying it's never too late to have a great childhood, and that we can go back and literally reparent those traumatizing moments where that little girl, that little boy was too overwhelmed to handle it. And what we did at that time is we just made an appointment. We said, look, when I'm big, I'll figure this out, but right now I'm just going to stuff it. And that became a pattern. And every time something overwhelming happened, yeah, big or little. It's like, well, I'll just stuff it. When I'm big, I'll come back and I'll figure that out. Well, we're big now. And
yeah,
and don't
it's
you
time.
don't you owe it to that beautiful, innocent, loving entity of you when you were 5, 6, 7 years old to go back and figure it out? I think that's the work. And to your point of being a better friend to yourself, I mean, you're the one who's been there for her when she was little all this time. And if you're ignoring those, because she's sending you little feelings and she's sending you signs that are saying, I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling, curious or eager, then okay, attention that. And then if you're really lucky, you can do it with others and talk in language in that manner. Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally what I get to do for a living. This is literally what I get to do is to help these facilitate these. So let's talk about what your heart looked like, as you discovered that there is no other.
Yeah. So that would be to say, what does my heart look like now? And it is really ornate. So I'm gonna say I had occasion to go and spend Dia de Muertos in a place called San Miguel de Allende. And this is where, if you don't know, Dia de Muertos is the Day of the Dead, and it's kind of a celebration with the loved ones who have passed. And there's one day per year where you get to be with their spirit. And in order to conjure them, you make an ofrenda, an offering, an altar. And so an altar might have really cool geometric designs made of things that the beloved loved. So if they liked coffee, then you employ coffee beans. If they like cigarettes, maybe you put a little cigarette or tobacco in. But so my heart is a mandala. It's a geometric, ornate, um, still a beating organ, and but it has different elements of beauty to it, and those elements of beauty, I think, encapsulate the things that I find fascinating, and some of those things are just the natural beauty of my surroundings, the trees, the birds, the rivers, the timelessness of all of those who walked before and who will walk after. Um, yeah, so I think I have a there is no other heart that includes some geometric beauty to it.
I love it. I love it. So before we say goodbye, what is one piece of advice that you would leave listeners with?
Be a good listener. I think listening is a lost art, and so much of our time is listening with the intent to formulate a response. And really, people want to be witnessed. Very rarely, there's a lot of tactical conversation, and that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But the art of sitting with and being with somebody and just receiving them, and um, yeah, by listening, you learn so much, and then necessarily people are very fair. Then they will also say, "Well, tell me then, what do you feel?" And yeah, so I think everybody needs to work on listening a little bit more.
I totally agree. I notice that when I listen, like when I'm actually not thinking about 47 other things or having that very tactical conversation, I notice that I feel it in my body. I'll get chills or I'll get sensations in my body when I'm really listening. And I have found that to be a good barometer of, am I engaged? Because a lot of times we try to listen and we try to be engaged, but our mind is a wonderful, wicked, and busy place, and sometimes like we have to like touch base, touch back. And so I've noticed that's a good way for me to know whether I'm actively listening or whether I'm just listening to go to whatever is next.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that my default is to problem solve, to optimize. And and my go-to thing is that, oh, if I want to provide value to Marissa, to this conversation, to anybody, then when they tell me something, I need to tell them what to do, or here's my experience, and okay, so all we have to do is, and we can do it together, and da, 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 da. That's probably not what you brought,
No.
nor was it what I would have brought. So yeah, just being available.
Yeah, the value is presence. And that took me a long, long time to learn. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your hearts, and have a great day, everybody. Happy Thursday.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Marissa.